to 12 o'clock and have not a hell of a lot more. But I'm very thankful for all the questions that councillors are putting up, which is very good to show everyone's engaged. We have Councillor Henstock, please. We'll get the
questions and everything.
Yeah, questions and everything. Hey? Yes, it's a very long list.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Am I good to go?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm leaving Councillor MacDonald for the grand finale.
Oh. I'm looking forward to it.
Instead of Kelly.
A couple of weeks ago, I had some questions of senior transport staff about the project sums that were underpinning the long-term plan for a transport project in my ward, namely the Wheels to Wings. And staff confirmed that the budgets that were relied upon for the long-term plan were out of date by about 4 to 5 years. So we've seen projects increase in the transport space as well as a number of other infrastructure projects by quite significant sums over the last couple of years. And I think that there's a reasonable expectation that we can expect the project sum to increase for this particular project as well. And so as an elected member, I don't have a great deal of confidence in some of the sums that are underpinning the document. There is a question coming underpinning the document and concern that the public therefore can't have confidence either. So my question, and I'm not sure who it's to, is, are you satisfied that the budget information that we've got, particularly in relation to transport, is sufficiently accurate enough for the long-term plan calculations? And if it's reasonably expected that the project sums are going to increase, then is there provision somewhere in the long-term plan calculations to take account of that? And where is it?
So the estimates that we use for the long-term plan are worked up with the activity owners, and I think it's probably in this context of that question, it's worth remembering our change management process that we have, that we report, monthly to the Finance and Performance Committee. So yeah, budgets do change through all sorts of reasons that I've talked about at this table before, and what we more often than not do is accommodate those changes within the total program by changes or substitutions across the program. That's the benefit of running a big program, that you can move things around to accommodate changing needs, and we do that typically 99% of the time with a net zero impact to the LTP overall. So we might draw from a program or rearrange some other projects or change the staging to accommodate what we'll generally call budgetary pressure. And that budgetary pressure can come about in all sorts of ways through, understanding the design better as it develops, through joining projects up, or by developing scope as the project life cycle evolves.
So, given that we can expect some of the projects to be increasing, are you, satisfied that there's sufficient allowance made at that program level to accommodate what we can expect in those budget increases? And
yeah, I think I can't talk to individual projects across 1,000 odd projects that are in any one year, but what we've shown in the last few years is we accommodate change within the total program with a net zero impact on the total borrowing for the year. And that's the benefit of having a program management approach to capital investment.
Okay, thank you. Tyler, you were all good. Yeah, thank you, mate. Councillor Donovan.
Hi, this is a question for Brent around the stop banks. So I'm just flagging that I raised something previously around the levels of service for stop banks, and I think that's supposed to be updated in terms of the wording.
That's correct. There was a proposed change in levels of service around stock banks, and that was based on the funding levels in one of the earlier drafts as we were working our way through. I've asked for clarification on what happens to that proposed change now, and I've been advised that there will be no change, so that could be that proposed level of service change around stock banks could be removed from the document, and we will revert back to the existing wording.
Thank you.
So can we just make sure that's noted because it hasn't been removed yet? Thank you. Okay.
You're good? Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Auckland's going out with 3 budgets, and the general gist of it is one is pay more, get more, one is balance staying about the same, the other is pay less, get less. If an amendment is moved, is there any way of us going out with a question, not with 3 different budgets, but with the general concept of the question in that option 3? Are you prepared to pay more to get more? Should it say balanced? Are you prepared to pay less but know that you get less? So, is there something we can do? I'm just concerned that the question is potentially a bit vague and doesn't get us the answers and steer we're looking for from the public with something more simplified. Now, I wouldn't want to suggest we copy Auckland, but to be honest, I'm absolutely suggesting we copy the general concept from Auckland.
So,
is there any way we can have some question along those lines?
could I draw your attention, and I'm sorry,
Yep.
I wasn't particularly clear when asked this question. On page 32, under section heading Exploring Additional Options to our main proposal, we have that spelt out there. Continue with what's proposed, invest more in preparing for the long-term future of our city, and seek additional efficiencies and savings. Effectively, we are asking at that point, and what it is not carried through very well into the questions, but please note that's still in draft, that kind of breakdown is what we're asking there. Do you want to continue with what's proposed? Would you like to pay more? Would you like to seek additional efficiencies and savings? And at that point, we would be asking people that within the submission form, and then separate to that, we have option 1, 2, and 3. And I'm sorry, I wasn't clear when I first asked that question. That is not well reflected, as I said, in the last page with the submission, with the questions. That is something that is still in draft, and we're expecting to update after this meeting.
Thank you. You good, Andre? All good?
Yeah.
That will give an indication. People will be able to say,
Is the wording simplified enough? I guess is what I'm saying. The concept is pay less but get less.
as it is a balance
Yeah.
throughout this entire document.
Understood.
Where we don't want to be too colloquial. We do have some sort of legal and audit requirements. I can look again at the wording to see if we can really
Yeah.
drill down on that.
My concern is seek additional efficiencies and savings. I mean, we're always told to be doing that.
Yeah.
But it's often expected to find the savings, but absolutely no less services.
Yes.
So it's
So we can
So it's how do
really
we-
highlight the
Yeah.
fact that this may mean changes, but we can't be more definitive than that to the point that we can't commit to things that we haven't fully costed.
yeah. I guess I'm concerned that how do we communicate that you can pay less, and also get less? Because that's ultimately what levels of service are all about.
Clearer wording.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm down to 3. Councillor Johansson.
Thank you. I'm just wondering where the community will have visibility in the consultation document of changes to levels of service and activity management plans. And in particular, I mean, one that's really obvious to me that the community may be interested in is council deleting its target for the number of social housing units that it.
Look, I think I can briefly answer that. Every change to level of service is flagged in the activity plan under section 4, changes to levels of service. And there's also, I believe, from memory, a summary of levels of service changes as well. So,
Nothing in the consultation document that people aren't going to know to wade through, an attachment to find it. It's a bit like the fees and charges question. Is there a way that we can show or signal to people some of the key changes to those those documents in the CD so that people can be aware of.
I'd just like to check on something before I answer that. So, look, if you give me perhaps a few moments, I'll come back.
Just concerned that in the consultation document, when we look at the capital, there's no rationale for some of the things that have got significant budget increases. So we talk about being prudent, but then we also are adding quite significant budgets to, I mean, if you take Naval Point, I think it's getting another $6 or $7 million added to it, which is quite significant. Is there any way that people can see where we're increasing the costs or the capital to projects and what the justification is?
We'll come back about that. I suspect with the number of projects that are in our capital program and at different phases, from concept design to developed design to in construction, it will be very difficult to identify that.
I guess I was mainly meaning the ones that we've identified in the CD. Like if you go to page 24, it says, we're proposing to spend, 870 million on parks and foreshore. Big projects include, and then like Naval Point, and Takapuniki, obviously, Ekaroa Wharf, like some of the ones have gone up quite significantly and others are kind of new projects. So I wonder if it would be helpful to kind of highlight. But the other thing is, if you take like community park sports field development, there's not an actual title of something like that in the Orbis tool. So I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible for people to find out the details. And it would be really good to make sure that the wording is the same.
Yep.
But also, like, coming back to that whole program level question, I'm really struggling to understand how people can make meaningful submissions when they can't see what are the sports fields that are going to be developed. So is there anything that we can do to give a greater degree of understanding around the program level details for these big budgets?
I'll go first through you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say, in terms of the changes, it is really, the OrbVis tool, the bubble interactive tool, is a really good tool for showing that change. That's shown at multiple levels, so it's shown across the activity, the programs, the projects, any individual project. So on the left-hand side of that interactive tool, it shows you the current LTP budget amended by a couple of annual plans and our draft LTP for this period. So that for every project, for every program, for every activity, there's a side-by-side analysis of change from current to proposed.
But it doesn't tell you why?
But it might not tell you why, but I'm saying that's the absolutes are there in terms of the budget. There's a short amount of text that goes with it. It won't have a rationale as to why. I'd have to, you raised a number of projects there. I'd have to get the activity owners to respond to that individually.
Thank you.
So can I just ask a question? We have never gone down to that level of detail in a consultation document before, have we? Right. And has any other council gone down to that level of documentation in terms of each park?
I am not aware. I can't speak definitively on that. Do you mean to go down to project level within programs?
Sorry, it's not about it's not just about the consultation document. It's if you go to the activity management plan, which I've done, if you go to the asset management plan, which I've done, if you go to the capital program, which I've done, outside of the consultation document, you still cannot find what are the parks that we're developing as part of this 10-year plan. In the past, like I did street renewals as well. I still can't tell what streets are going to be renewed in Linwood outside of the CRAF ones that the government have funded. So I have no idea in my community when I'm engaging to say your street's on a year 9.
You're getting a bit debatey here.
No, I'm just trying to give the example. In the past, we have had 5-year and 10-year schedules of detail that people can find that we've engaged on, so people can know where if they're told to find a substitution or want to bring something forward or back, they're able to do it.
So
There's
it's a
no way that-
supporting document. We'll have a
You
look
can do
and
that
see
with
what we
this,
can do.
with so many of these programs,
Yep.
I'm seeing
And-
get it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
We've got to make it as clear for Ma and Pa to be able to read this and follow it as possible and come up with ideas that they can help us save money.
yeah. So can I just check, the other thing I was going to check, like, I feel like the options are slightly confusing in that they're not really options, they're sort of proposals, and I wonder whether, like, there's the three options around, you know, do less, do more, what we've got. I get that those are options, but in the document there's a number of things like that are more like proposals rather than options that are called options, and I think that is, I don't know if we could just, you know, like option 1, bid funding for major events. It's not an option, it's a proposal, so.
Sure.
Is
Yeah,
it
that's
possible?
something that can be
Yeah, we
easily
can
resolved.
definitely clarify which ones are
Oh.
proposals and which
Yep.
ones aren't.
And two other questions. One is, I don't know what happened to that water quality money that we put in, but it's not flagged in the CD.
You're getting a bit low now, getting a bit deep.
No, we added 25 million. We had a
Councillor's
section.
correct, and we can address that.
Okay.
And then finally, obviously we've all seen the paper today, hopefully, and read the story. But I'm struggling that there's no reference to the transport choices in the transport section. There's no reference to the CRAF funding being cut or changed. So how do we? So we've got the SURF, the transport choices. We've got money that we're putting on, but there's no. The community would have no idea in terms of what's in our document around what we're doing and why. Is there any way that we can have something in the transport section that outlines what's happening in that space? I mean, obviously we've got a report tomorrow which gives about a third of the information on one specific program. But for example, if I was reading the CD, I'd have no idea that the craft projects are being cut in Linwood. I can read the capital program and it tells me.
So through the chair, councillor, none of the CRAF projects have been cut. They are all still on budget. The CRAF projects, none of them have been cut. All of the SURF projects are being reported tomorrow at the Finance and Performance meeting. The funding for that has been cut. They were all due to be delivered by the end of this financial year, hence none of them feature in next financial year, which is the year we're talking about in this long-term plan.
And maybe it's just how the capital program put together, but there is a $1.7 million cut for the Linwood craft budget line, and maybe it's been allocated to something else, but again, like when you read the capital program and you look on the tool, it's unclear why it's been cut.
Through the chair, I'll take that detail up with the PMO and get to the bottom of that, because my understanding is nothing's been cut from the CRAF program.
Thank you. Okay, we need to move along. We've got two left. Councillor Henstock, please.
Thank you, very brief. It's a supplementary to what Councillor Moore was raising in terms of the pay less, get less, pay more, get more, and I'm feeling his frustration and pain with that. I raised this specifically in one of our workshops, and I don't think you were sitting in that seat at the time, Mary, but can I clarify then, what is your takeaway as a result of his questions today and what you're going to look at?
So there's and I think it's not only Councillor Moore's questions, it's everybody's questions, and the feedback we've got is that we are actually going to rework the document, consultation document, if you agree, to make it clearer and more precise and easier for people to understand.
Yes, please. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor, and last but not least, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Mary's probably just saved half an hour of my questions, so that's good. So the first one was around the options. So thanks for the work on this. The first one's around the options, and I kind of agree with Yanni, they're actually not options. I mean, the events funding one, for example, it doesn't refer to the fact that we already have funding that we provide to Christchurch NZ. So I just and you know, VO do their stuff. I just think they need to be a bit more balanced in terms of what's currently happening and what the option is if that plays out. So, you know, I think they're quite crucial when we want people to talk on them. And just the other one, and it's more for my clarity, I guess, why people are watching, just around the climate fund. And it was just a comment I think, Katie, you made around we can do it because there's already program level funding.
No, what I meant to say, and maybe I got that incorrect, the program level we have examples of program level funding where we don't go into the specificity, though obviously that is causing some problems here.
Right. So can this just clarify, personally I think it should clarify what we're currently doing in this space already in terms of what we spend. I think it's back to Pauline's point around climate change. But secondly, I think it needs to identify, because I'm still unclear on it, well, firstly, around the specific objectives and governance arrangements, that I can't see how we can't provide something to the public around how that would operate. And then secondly, if this money is additional capital spend over the life of the budget, or if it's just sitting in a pot building up, because again, there isn't options here. So I just think if we're trying to, if I read the document 3 times on Saturday, the whole one, and I struggled to interpret it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I'm not entirely thick, although most people would probably suggest that I am. But if I can't understand it, how on earth is someone out there going to understand this? And that's a theme that goes right through. So then I've just got a couple of others, and I've just Yep. So so the first one is page 5. So and it's really a materiality question, which to me goes, if I'm trying to interpret something, and Mary, maybe it's something you can take away with it, is do we need to be very precise in $6.1 million in that? Can it just be $6 million? So that actually if someone's reading it, they get the theme. There's got to be a materiality that sits in behind all of this, I would have thought, and I'm not sure it does. The next one is page 6. So we say keeping our assets up to speed, and it says we're doing what we've done for some time. But actually the council unanimously agreed to a deliverable budget, a capital program, and we should be referencing that council have made a conscious decision to do that. So I was quite, thought that would be in there. And just the other one, and again, it's just something to reflect on page 7, is around Te Kaha. It's got, in terms of significant impact on rates, are we still comfortable that at 2.17% we consider that significant when inflation, insurance and interest rates are about 9 combined? So again, just another one to take away. Sorry, and I will stop in a minute, but the pages 9 to 12 is just very wordy and very difficult to understand. Page 13. So where we're setting the financial scene, I actually agree with Pauline. It would be really useful to spell out those key drivers in a table, or however Tyrone wants to pull it together. Yeah. So just something where people go, this is the rate increase at the moment. These costs here are beyond our control. These ones are where we've made choices. I think we should be doing that. The other one was on page 18, around Sarah's point around water leaks. We haven't included that in there yet, but we would. The other one was, the other one was page 21, the Southwest Library? No, South Library. There's a paragraph in there, but it doesn't reference the fact that government have contributed.
We have added, yes.
You've added that, okay. It just wasn't in there. Agree with Pauline around the balanced budget and the fact that it doesn't make sense the way it's written at the moment. And then the other ones were a couple of other things was around Pauline's point around the climate change spending, comparing it to the last LTP. I think we need to also think about what we delivered in that LTP, because it goes back to that deliverable point before. What we put on budget wasn't necessarily what we could actually achieve. So I think for context for people, we need to understand what we did put on budget, what we actually delivered, and what we're putting on budget now under the context of, council staff have said we can deliver this budget. So that just needs a bit more context. And then the only other two things, then I'll shut up. There's not a lot of reference to the resident survey in this, which to me, and I haven't been here that long, but to me that's a scientific document that actually, that we should rely on. I kind of have it, had it referred to me as almost like the Bible of council, that they will, we don't often get it wrong in terms of the themes. So I get that we did the what matters or whatever the campaign was, which is good. But actually, we also need to reference that thing we pay a lot of money for each year that we kind of rely on for our decision making, and it isn't really in there. And then, the only other thing, and I think Mary, you might take away, is around the strategic framework stuff, and kind of just refining it so people are a bit clearer on it. And I think you've got the only other point was around Andre's, which I thought was really valid. And if Auckland Council are able to do something like that, I don't know if they're being audited or not, but we should reflect on that. Oh, they've got actual options, yeah. So sorry, that's a brain dump, but rather than questions, that's just stuff that I think we need to take away. And really, you know, if like the average reading age is 12, how on earth can we make this more digestible to the average person? Because I note the point that we're not picking up engagement, and I'm not surprised at sort of 41 pages. So I just really like the team to go back and reflect on that so we can get something that people actually want to engage with. Yeah, thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Sam. And very lastly,
thank you. Couple of just quick things. Just one comment on the water leaks, the levels of service that Sam just mentioned. I'd sent that through earlier, and that's already a change that's been made. Or do we need to move an amendment for it?
No, we don't need an amendment. This process is actually getting feedback.
Yeah.
We will be taking that on board and working up a revision so that there'll be an opportunity to ensure that they are captured.
I'm just thinking of the number of comments and bits of feedback and potential changes that are going to be made to this consultation document today. Just letting you know, I'm really wary about saying that we're signing it off when there's going to be so many changes, and wondering whether that should be on the 11th of March when we have the next meeting. Just a
So
thought.
we do need, just to clarify, we do need to have it at audit for the hot debrief on the 1st of March.
Yeah.
But with the ability to then make changes based on your feedback today, and also will audit the advice that audit gives.
Okay.
So that we do need to progress with the hot debrief, otherwise we're not going to meet the target.
So the last one was just on the adaptation plans, and I think Sam's right, it could be made clearer. So it says in alignment with our adaptation plans. The adaptation plans are actually specific documents that are being generated by the community, rather than just generally what we're planning for adaptation. And I think that's not clear in the document. So with the adaptation plans adopted by council, so that refers to something that's coming back to council. And I think that would finish that paragraph off nicely. And the other one, where it says more specific objectives and governance arrangements would be established in order to ensure the fund is appropriately targeted. You could mention that this would be reported to council for decision, because that way the public also get a chance to have their feedback on that. And I know that's the intent, because we would need to establish the fund in some way, like the Capital Endowment Fund was established. There's rules around it, that kind of thing. So if we're clearer about that, that would be great. Thanks.
thank you. Righty ho. We will now stop and come back at 1 o'clock for debate and vote. So we'll adjourn. Just,
Mr. Mayor, is it possible just to have one debate?
that's
on
what
both?
we're going to talk about in about 2 seconds. We off? Okay, yeah, we're adjourning till and come back at 1 o'clock. But Mary just wants to have a real quick yarn.
The media will still be in the room, that's all right.